Call me at this number. You can call me on So anyway.
Wow, all right. Yeah, because that's what every time.
Hello.
Me too. Me too.
Every time he sees
Would you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen.
Every time he sees you, he stops by to tell me I saw you. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, bless this assemblage. Grant us the wisdom to make our every decision fair-minded and in the best interest for all its residents.
Amen.
Goldie's 2 for 2 tonight. You know, I feel bad taking you away from the concert in Right Town Park. Let us in the pledge of both here and Right Town Park. Okay. Presentations. Are we starting with the presentations?
I want you to move your microphone over.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Are we starting with presentations, or are we going to start with the minutes?
I don't know if we have presentations, but sometimes I just put it. I don't know if
All right,
there is
good.
a president.
There is a presentation. Where's Mr. Arcaro? But we're not going to start with it. We'll wait. So let's get the, any comments or questions on the minutes of the meeting of June 18th?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as written.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Actually, I just realized, Town Attorney, I didn't call the meeting formally to order, did I? Can I get a motion to... No, I didn't. I forgot to. Sorry. I'm so anxious to get this. Can I get a motion to bring the town meeting to order? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, now we officially. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 18th meeting and the July 1st meeting as written.
Any comments, questions? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Goldie, over to you.
As a historian for the area, I'm very upset about Right Town Hall being sold and the parking lot also. I have always felt that Right Town was the most important historic town in our area, in our community. It represents the beginnings of Portchester, Rybrook, and even parts of Mamaroneck. I'm not happy about that. I don't know what's going to happen. I love the tax department, but where am I going to get it to the tax department? I love the assessment bureau, but where am I going to get to the assessment bureau? I know
The good thing is, Joe Carvin has the answer, and he's going to tell you when you're done talking.
No, wait a minute. He can tell me after I get finished. I love Oakland Beach, and it's on the historic register. We have a lot of things on the historic register that belong there, and Right Town certainly belongs there. I don't want you to even dissolve the town of Rye. Please don't do that. Don't dissolve it. We need it. So it has to be somewhere, and everything has to be there for people like me who represent the elderly, the veterans, and those disabled that can't get all over the place to get to the tax department or the assessment bureau. Everything has to be in one place so we can get from one to the other. And I want you to think about that. Billy, you're too young. I don't want you to think about, I don't want you to say anything.
Do you realize that you are actually saying exactly what the town of Rye is looking to do? You just said that you want everything to be in one spot.
In one spot?
Right, I don't mean to cut you off. But
yeah, but we don't know that you're doing that. Well, we don't know it. We don't know it. It hasn't been in the paper or anything. The only thing that's been in the paper is that you're selling the building and you're selling the lot. But it doesn't say anything about everything going in one spot.
Read the paper, because they had a great quote in there. As a matter of fact, our dear friend from the Westmore News wrote it. And that's exactly where we're going. Who's
here from the Westmore News?
Right there in the back. Raise your hand.
Claire.
You know what? Claire is spectacular. She's here at the Westmore News almost every meeting. But our focus is to bring everything together to make it easier for the community. And know that.
Yeah, but you have to remember that you represent the whole community, which is made up of not only young people, but the elderly, veterans, disabled people, and everything that need help. And you cannot just do one thing for one group.
Goldie, we're going to move just like we are here as one big cohesive group from one place to another. We're all staying together. We're just going to be located in a different spot, which we don't know where yet.
I think, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If at the end of tonight...
Yeah, but it could be out of this area.
It has to be in the town of Rye.
Yeah, but the town of Rye takes in a lot of area, including Mamaroneck, including Rye Brook. What are the people of Portchester, who are the poorest people in the whole area, going to do to get there?
Okay.
How are we going to get any place other than in Portchester?
Let's not anticipate solutions. Let's listen. And do you have any other comments? I hear what you're saying loud and clear.
You have to stay in Portchester where the people can come and help themselves. We can't go to Rye Brook. We can't go to Mamaroneck.
Okay.
We can't do that.
I think we got the message loud and clear.
You haven't got it loud.
It's loud enough, but I don't know if it's clear enough.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions from the public? Maybe that's our cue for our presentation. Mr. Arcaro?
Sorry. Yeah.
What is our presentation on, by the way?
It's on the proposed sale of the town.
I'll take care of it.
Of the town?
Town hall. Town hall, sorry.
We're selling the town. Come on, sir.
Disney World. That's why we're selling the town and its employees.
We didn't even declare it as surplus property. I think we're jumping in here.
Is that good enough like that? Or you right in the screen?
No problem.
So, Goldie's absolutely right. The town goes back to 1660.
That's correct. It's a historic town.
10 Pearl Street doesn't go back to 1660. I think it's 48. So, I want to talk to, this is obviously an important change for the way the town does business, and I wanted to give an opportunity to explain to Goldie and the public at home, why we're doing this, what's the rationale, what's the thought process behind this. So, Mr. Carroll? So we have about just under 12,000 square feet here, and when we took office, it's important to remember that not just the town of Rye offices were located here, but the village of Portchester as well. They moved out in the spring of 2008, and we've tried it, as we know, on numerous occasions, those who followed us over the years, to try and rent out the vacant space, the big gaping hole left by the village of Portchester, and we were unable to rent it out at a market space rent. And as we've been talking for the last 2 years, we've been talking about, might it not make sense to sell this building, particularly after Councilman Nioras did a study of the capital expenditures going forward, and we realized, are we really going to spend about $1.85 million in capital expenditures to throw into this, what some might consider a money pit? On top of that, as we all know, we let 7 people go at the beginning of this year for budgetary reasons. So when we shrunk our staff, not all of which were located here, but we shrunk our staff, we found ourselves in a situation where we occupied about 45% of the building. We then said, okay, let's test the markets. Let's bring in a realtor. We brought in the New York Commercial Realty Group and said, let's find out what the fair market value of the building is and see if there's some interested parties. There's some strategics located. We're all thrilled to see the Capitol Theater come in here, transform our Portchester community, and a number of different strategic owners, such as down near across the street, and other potential bidders. We said, let's see what kind of interest there is in the building. And what we discovered is that we had 4 serious bids. We talked about this at the last meeting. We had 4 serious bids, 2 for $1.85 million, two for $1.75 million. And we chose the bid from the Capitol Theater and Nioras Bakery, primarily because of one, the top price, but two, very flexible terms in terms of facilitating our move and eventual move to another building. So, the first thing is, okay, what's the impact on our operating budget? According to our budget, we basically spend, Mr. Monix put some numbers together, about just over $102,000 a year to operate this building. I want to thank Councilwoman Collins and Mr. Nowotnik and Mr. Arcaro. They have looked to see if we were to relocate, where we might relocate, where is feasible. They looked at a number of places with New York Commercial Realty, and ultimately the best deal we got is a potential rental with the Village of Portchester at $67,500 a year. Now that includes the move of the courts as well as our staff. In addition to that, and we'll talk a little bit more some of the qualitative benefits, Goldie, where we'll co-locate in a new government center at the Village of Portchester. Mr. Nowotnik tells us we have some savings for modernization when we move because of the reduced cost in the telephone system. Insurance, we had additional savings of $16,100, and we would be giving up the rental income we currently get of $6,840.
Right.
So at the end of the day, we basically generate, just on the move alone, for just under $44,000 a year in operating savings on a relatively small budget. Now, the second thing is, when we sell the building for $1.85 million, ultimately we have brokerage costs, moving costs were estimated at $100,000. Is it in here? Oh, there we go, right here. So after paying an estimated one-time moving cost of $100,000, now I'm hoping Mr. Nowotnik is going to be less than that. He's given himself a lot of room to look good on that one. And one time, also, what do we call it, build-out?
Yeah, build-out.
Build-out cost is $75,000. Again, I'm hoping that's high. But one thing I want to assure the employees of the town of Rye and the residents of the town of Rye, I want the new space to be better than what it is today. And so the one thing I'm prepared to invest in is our employees' well-being and the new space. So this is the one place, and let me make clear to our team and staff, the one place where I am prepared to invest is in generating a new space at the Village of Portchester, okay? And what we've agreed with the Village of Portchester when we talk about the lease is that the permanent fixtures that we put into the new place as part of the build-out will be amortized over the cost of the rent. Okay, so go back. So net $1.6 million in proceeds that come into the town, right? So we're 1.6 to the plus. And then as a result of that, we'll earn about $41,600 a year on interest income. We put it in a 10-year Treasury note at today's interest rates. Okay, so it's the same point. All right. Now, Councilman Nioras put together a very detailed capital expenditure plan a couple years ago, and basically we talked about the need for about $1.8 million in capital expenditures. For those of you who visited my office and where Mr. Nowotnik works day and night until his day and night, the first couple of years you would have seen a big garbage can in the middle of the office. And people said, why is that big garbage can there? Well, it's because when the roof leaked, we had to capture the rain in some fashion. So we finally got the roof improved, but at the end of the day, certainly if there was a candidate for a money pit anywhere in the Portchester town of Rye, this building is it. So effectively, and if we were going to spend $1.8 million, we would have to borrow those monies. And we'd have to do that in the not too distant future. And ultimately, that would cost us, according to Mr. Arcaro, just under $160,000 a year, assuming a 15-year maturity and a 4% interest rate. That's a guesstimate, but it's a good ballpark number. So, what are the overall savings? We have operating savings here. We give away the interest earned and avoided debt service. So basically, we're saving about $245,000 a year. And remember, our fund deficit this year is about $345,000. So we go a long way towards closing that fund deficit. Now, The other thing is, rather than add a liability, what's the impact of the balance sheet? Well, rather than add a liability, and Honorable Mr. Mack, a liability is bad, and then we turn our asset, the building, into cash, right? So the overall positive impact from a cash perspective, right, is $3.4 million to the positive, which is equivalent to 1 year's budget. Now, we don't want to think about just the town of Rye. We want to think about our constituents. Goldie, this slide is for you. This is what we call the Goldie slide. I meant to put that on.
It says Goldie right there.
Oh, no, there we go. Okay, Goldie, see? Goldie, we're putting this building back on the tax roll. We've been here 6 years. There hasn't been one meeting you haven't come to where you said there's too many buildings off the rolls. So when we put the building back on the rolls, we estimate there's about $65,000 to the constituents of the town of Rye, and it did actually, mostly Portchester is positively impacted by $65,000. And oh, by the way, who are we proposing to pay the rent to, Councilwoman Collins?
I believe that would be the Village of
The Village of Portchester. So the Village of Portchester, in many ways, is generating $130,000 in benefits. Now, finally, and this gets to your point, Goldie, there's a qualitative improvement. Right now, the Village of Portchester houses the Village of Portchester, obviously, State Assemblyman Steve Otis, and State Senator George Latimer. And if the town of Rye goes there, we've created a new government center. And by the way, Goldie, you don't have to risk your life every time you cross the street to get mowed down by traffic. We have a more congenial setting. And then finally, as we look forward, because we're always forward-looking in this institution, in this town, as we look forward, well, wait a second, we got a clerk services in the same place where the village has clerk services. Could there potentially be savings? Well, I know the Village of Portchester would benefit greatly from having town clerk Vespia working alongside them. And similarly, we're going to merge the courts. The courts are going to come together. We have the town courts and the village courts. What's to say we can't begin to share services there and reduce what? The burden on the taxpayers. So, I have to tell you, in the 6 years I've been here, I've never seen the stars have aligned. They have come together, and we have a win-win-win-win-win. This only could have happened if the Village of Portchester had space available. Thank the dear Lord they had space available. It only could have happened if we had strategic buyers looking to come in here and buy this building. So ultimately, we saved $250,000. We improve our cash position by $3.4 million. We move away from money pit potential expenditures to a safe, convenient government center alongside the Village of Portchester. If that's not a win-win-win, I don't know what is. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. And now we're going to vote on two resolutions relevant to this. One is to confirm the sale to the winning bidders, and the other is to talk about the lease and hopefully approve the lease. So, Town Attorney Note, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk to people through the two resolutions, if we could.
Sure. B and C.
Where are the lights, Bishop? We'll get the lights back up.
Yeah, no, A and B. No, A, B,
No,
and C.
A's the in-rem.
Yeah, got it.
Good presentation.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
I liked it.
The only thing I don't have is the LOIs.
Bishop had them, right?
Oh, Bishop.
All right, let's start with the...
Yes, sir.
We're actually going to go in the reverse order. We're going to do C first, because I want to just talk a little bit about... Well, I'm not actually going to talk about it, because Joe just did talk about it. The sale of the building. So on Resolution C, which I'm not going to read, but as the supervisor indicated, we've gone through a fairly thorough and aggressive process of marketing the building. As you know, we occupy less than 50% of the building. It does require a significant capital investment in order to continue and have it operate as a town center. So the board in the past had made the decision to retain a commercial real estate firm to market the building and to solicit proposals, which they did. We had a number of very good proposals. We narrowed it down to 2, and after further review on July 1st, the board had designated the Nioras Capitol Theater partnership. It's Dominic Neri, Pete Shapiro, Anthony Tyrone, DPA Joint Ventures as the preferred purchaser. We then met with representatives from that organization and solidified what we think is a very good proposal. So you are now in a position to actually vote to sell the building to this entity on the terms and conditions that you had originally agreed to, which is a minimum price of $1,850,000, no mortgage contingency, a purchase as is, not subject to any environmental or physical inspections, and a lease back to us, meaning we could remain in this location at least until January 1st, 2014 at no consideration, and they have agreed to consider additional time if we need it, not necessarily at no consideration, but at a reasonable consideration. And therefore, it is clearly within the legal range as fair market value, so you can sell it for this to this purchaser for this price. And therefore, before you is a resolution that would authorize the supervisor to execute a contract of sale along with the other transfer documents necessary to sell the building. This is subject to a permissive referendum, so tonight, after you adopt this resolution, there'll be Hope Vespia will publish a notice in the local publications. It will wait 30 days. Assuming no petition is filed, then I will have a contract to the purchaser's attorney, and we'll sign a contract. And then at that point, they'll do title search, and we'll be well on our way to negotiating or finalizing leases with Portchester. So we'll be in a position to close certainly before the end of the year, but I know the supervisor would like to close sooner than that if possible.
I have a few questions.
Please.
Sure.
Do you want me to go
Yes,
first?
please. Yes, please, please.
Okay, my first question is, at the last meeting, we were just kind of authorizing to look around. Now, all of a sudden, I come back at this meeting, and we're already authorizing to go to Portchester and to sell the building. I thought the building had to be declared a surplus property
Yes,
first.
by virtue of tonight's resolution, well, actually, the resolution you adopted on July 1st, which was when you designated a preferred purchaser, that and the meeting in which you hired the real estate people was last 6 months ago. That was not a recent meeting. The determination is that as of the July 1st meeting that the building is surplus, meaning we don't need this building in its entirety, and you can't sell half a building. So because we only occupy less than 50%, it is a determination that you make, only the board can make, that you don't need it, and therefore you're going to sell it.
Okay, so then, where do we have, with the other, can I ask questions about the next resolution, or should I wait till
Absolutely,
we
yeah,
get?
no.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the next resolution, after,
Why don't you present both, and then,
yeah, okay.
and then we can,
Once we had,
because the two go hand in hand.
yes, once we'd gone well into the process of selling, meaning we'd gotten to the point where we had two very serious proposals on the sale of the building, the supervisor and staff immediately asked the brokers to help locate, I guess, an alternative office space. And one of the options was, of course, the Village of Portchester. So conversations were held with Portchester. They had to pull out the old plans for the renovation when they renovated the building. And we did a needs analysis for what we have here. And, one of the interesting things is a lot of the space we have here are hallways and stairwells, which we don't need. So given that we've reduced our staff, we feel we can occupy efficiently that third floor over at Grace Church Street at a considerably less cost to the town. So we did a needs analysis. Meetings were held with Village of Portchester officials. The supervisor took the lead on most of the negotiations with the mayor. And they came to an agreement that we would pay $67,500 all in. Now, when I say all in, one of the issues that we ran into that was problematic were the courts. We have to have a court under the state constitution, and to operate a court, there are certain requirements for security reasons that we have to maintain. There has to be a place for prisoners to be transported. There has to be an office for Ann. People pay their fines. So that was honestly the hardest part of the process, because there was difficult to find a court space. And I would say Portchester was extremely helpful, because they're essentially allowing us to work within their existing court system to use their space and have an office for Ann Capisi. So I think it's great for us, and it's at a pretty good rate.
So the Rye Brook Court, our Rye Town Court is going to go to Main Street.
Correct. It'll be on Main Street in Portchester. Now, they're also contemplating a move of that building, and we would move with them. So,
Is Rye Brook okay with this? Like, why doesn't the court go to...
well, we actually met with Rye Brook as well, and Rye Brook has no interest in a court system in their building. We actually did approach Rye Brook about this, and they were, it's just not something they're interested in doing. I'm not sure if it was a security issue or they just didn't feel they had the time and space, because it does require a space for the court clerk. But we did. We reached out to Rye Brook, and they were actually very helpful in helping us in terms of addressing our need and helping us identify some of the issues. But they really had no interest in having the courts there.
And what happened to the other 2 spaces we were looking at? Did we negotiate with them to get prices from them?
Well, this I'd have
So
to
the other
look to
two
Bishop, but I think
spaces were 800 Westchester Avenue Gateway. I don't know if they ever even came back to, well, why don't you, Mr. Nowak, tell, or Christina, I don't know, Councilwoman Collins.
I'll let
Mr. Nowak, go ahead and just tell them what happened with the other 2 spaces we looked at.
I will, while he's getting ready to speak, say that we were very limited in options and places we could look because of the court system and just because of the type of entity that we were. Not too many landlords really wanted to have such a public-facing and potentially a criminal court in their building while we were sharing hallways with other entities. So that's somewhat understandable. So we didn't have too many places that we really could look at, and it had to be in the town of Rye zip codes. So we were limited in our selection process.
Yeah, the brokers had specifically mentioned that a number of landlords pulled away, particularly, for example, up on King Street in that industrial park by Belfair there. They didn't want any kind of court facility there in any of their buildings, and they had spaces there that were available. 800 Westchester Avenue was one of the spaces we looked at. We actually sat down and met with Bob Weiss. The problem there is frankly, they have never gotten back to us with any specific spaces available. They did show us several spaces, and their asking price was up around $25 a square foot. We also went down to the Gateway. There was some space there. It was currently occupied. The problem there is the landlord still doesn't have a commitment from the renter that's there now as to when they're actually leaving. So it was difficult for us to maneuver in that kind of a space environment. Gateway does have a parking problem, and our feeling was that was going to be a difficult thing to overcome. And so that's the 2 spaces.
That was one of the largest faults, or cons, I should say, in Gateway was the parking situation. It was going to be difficult to provide parking to the public there. They do have a public lot across the street. You'd have to cross Main Street to get to the building, and they're looking to possibly develop it. So it's not even guaranteed long-term parking.
And my last question would be, I looked at the plans you gave me last time. Is there a meeting space for us? I don't see any place where the board is going to be able to...
That's Portchester. So basically, as part of our agreement with Portchester, we would, where they're giving us the courts, they're also going to give us our monthly meeting. We'll be doing our monthly meetings at Portchester, and the 1 day for the bar assessment review as well. So when we say the courts, they're the principal users, but in addition to that, we'll do our monthly meetings at Portchester as part of the rental.
Is that going to conflict with any of theirs? Because they have all of their meetings in that room also, and also the parking is limited there.
Well, they're Monday nights, and we're Tuesday night. But they
also have other meetings, architectural.
Yeah, the situation that was discussed was that there would be some compromises made, and there may have to be some scheduling adjustments. But they did, and we did discuss about the evening meetings, and they were fine giving us basically the 12 Tuesdays. So
I have to say Portchester has been enormously helpful throughout this process. And again, of course, it's taken them a while to rent the third floor space, but talking about neighborly relations, they really worked hard to make this work, and I think that they really believed in this co-location of a government center And I think the thought was that was very attractive.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board are on either B or C? Other questions or comments?
I would clarify just on Resolution B.
Bless you.
What we have is a letter of intent, and there are some undetermined amounts. I mean, for example, the build-out, we just did an RFP for architects to come in and design the build-out, and
As part of our moving costs.
Correct.
Right.
And there's a build-out provision that would be part of the lease. So that what you're not approving a lease. You're approving essentially authorizing the supervisor to pursue lease negotiations along the lines in the letter of intent. What will happen is after the 30 days are up and we sign a contract with the purchaser, assuming there's no referendum, then we would have an actual lease document prepared that would be given to the board to approve. So you're not approving a lease tonight. Excuse me. So there's a possibility that these numbers will change, is what I'm saying to you. But this is a letter of intent, and I believe the Village of Portchester approved the letters of intent last night.
Yes.
Okay.
On the same basis, exactly.
Right.
The only moving part is the build-out.
Right.
And what's been agreed conceptually is whatever permanent features are built into the 222 Grace Church Street will serve as a reduction to the rent. So a prepayment, if you will, the $67,500. And what's not is for our own charge. So ultimately, the $67,500 is a hard number. What we need to be finalized is the build-out, and until we could hire an architect and go through the space, it was impossible to know, one, what the build-out costs were going to be, and two, how much is permanent, how much isn't.
Is that 67.5 a first-year amount, or is that a long-term?
No, that's a good question. No, it's a first-year amount, and then we have a 10-year lease that goes. It's an all-in lease, including absolutely everything from electricity, cleaning, utilities. It then increases at a rate of 3% a year on an all-in lease for 10 years.
That will go up.
And that, by the way, that includes utilities.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
We don't pay our own utilities, which is
the other thing is...
And there's free parking.
And is there any way that this deal could fall apart?
Meaning between now and when we sign a lease?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, hold on.
Anything can happen in life.
Hold on. Yeah. So, it's again a very good question. The Village of Portchester Board approved this last night, is my understanding. I didn't actually see the meeting, but the mayor told me that they've approved this lease in the same format that we're approving it this evening. And so it's an in-principle approval. Obviously, the board could change its mind. We could change our mind, but so long as that the two respective boards stay of the same mind, I'm hard-pressed to see anything that would undermine it. But, as Town Attorney Nato says, something always could happen. But right now, there's every intention on the part of the Village Board of Portchester, certainly every intention from our standpoint, at least as far as I would like to see it, that this move forward as is.
Yeah, the path to heaven's paved with good intentions. I'd like to see it in writing.
No, it's to hell, right? Isn't the road to hell is paved with good intentions?
I got it wrong.
You would like to see what in writing?
I'd like to see a final document.
Well, you will. This is an LOI. This is simply a letter of intent. It gets the process started, and you will get an actual lease document to approve within the next 6 weeks. I don't know if it'll be at the next meeting, but yeah, absolutely. You can't. Only the board can approve a lease, so you will get a lease document to approve. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments from the board on either resolution B or C?
No.
Okay, let's start with C, I think, because that should be the trigger. Can I get a motion to approve resolution C?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Hope, would you call the roll?
Collins,
Yes.
Mendicino,
Aye.
Nioras,
Nay.
Villanova,
Yes.
Carvin.
Yes. Okay, and can I get a motion to approve resolution B?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Hope, would you call the roll?
Collins,
Yes.
Mendicino,
Aye.
Nioras,
I don't see how we can approve something where we don't have a concrete contract in hand, so I vote nay.
Villanova,
Yes.
Carvin.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Town Attorney Noto, for all your hard work on this. I know it's outside the box kind of thing, and just like to thank Town Attorney Noto. He's worked very hard to make this happen and get it done in a way that's legal and due process under some duress and pressure put on. So thank you. Yeah, I thank Mr. Nowotnik and Mr. Arcaro. Both worked very, very hard to make this happen. Again, I think this is a real win-win-win for the town and, most importantly, the constituents and taxpayers of the town of Rye. I want to thank Councilwoman Collins for her help and assistance trying to locate and find a location in a new place as well. Okay, great. And I thank, obviously, the board, Deputy Supervisor Villanova, Councilman Nioras, and Councilman Mendicino for all their help as well. Let's go back in order. Resolution A.
Yeah, I'll.
Yep.
It's that time of year again.
Yep.
I've obtained from the tax receiver's office the list of what we'll call the 2013 in-rem list. The number I counted, it was 812,000 that I just added up. He indicated there's a higher number of delinquent taxes due and owing. This is the list, which I am going to continue to verify with the assessor and the tax receiver to make sure I have the accurate information. It looks like it's a slightly smaller list than we've had in the past, which I guess is a good thing. But in any event, all of these properties are in-rem eligible. So I would ask a resolution authorizing me to commence an in-rem against these owners for unpaid taxes dating back to, well, at least 2010. I think some of them may go back even further.
So moved.
Same rates as last time.
Any questions, Councilman
Yeah, that was
Ward?
my question. Is it
No
the same
change.
rate?
No, same rate.
I got a
I
motion.
don't have the nerve to increase it, knowing tempting as it may be.
Can I get a motion? I still think you got a book on it. If you work on it, you got a book on it.
You have no idea. Me and Mr. Mecca.
Can I get a motion to approve the resolution authorizing town attorney to commence in-rem proceedings, resolution A?
So moved.
And I got a second?
Second.
Hope call the roll.
Collins,
Yes.
Mendicino,
Aye.
Nioras,
Aye.
Villanova,
Yes.
Carvin.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Nowotnik. Why don't we do D and F right now, as long as you're up there, all right? We got to keep you up there for both of them.
All right.
So, on-call property services agreement.
Okay. There's no need to go through the history. We are in the second round of bidding this particular item. Whereas last time we had 3 bidders, we now only have 2 bidders. But what we did was we segmented the work in a slightly different fashion, and we feel comfortable that Zika Landscaping would be the recommended contractor. If you look at the chart that we put together, what essentially we did was we broke down the work into 2 separate categories of prevailing wages. There's Article 9 prevailing wages, Article 8 prevailing wages. Article 9 prevailing wages are primarily building service type things, and that's really what we're looking for. Article 8 wages, which you see down at the lower section of the chart, those are skilled laborers, electricians, plumbers, etc.
So this is, sorry, just to be clear, so this on-call, these are replacing the 3 employees we had?
No. Well, in a way, yes. If you'll recall, we laid off the employees last December. We then put in place a temporary service contract with Greenway to replace the work that the 3 employees were doing.
Right.
Now, what we're doing is replacing that temporary services contract.
Right. Well, what was that contract? Was it $1,000?
That was $1,170 a week.
Now, how much is this contract going to cost?
Assuming we do the same numbers with Zika, we're talking about $800 or so.
All right.
on a weekly basis. So this will save money over the temporary agreement that's
When you
in
say
place now.
assuming, but it obviously doesn't say $100 a week, and so I'm just trying, how are we going to control?
Well, no, for example, you're looking at, we're going to be using
I could see the
8 hours
rates.
of the cleaner at $29.75, et cetera. So there are services that are tied to certain hours.
So, okay, so it's clear that Zik is the lower cost provider.
Yeah.
Well, it's not as clear as how much it's going to cost the town from this piece of paper.
Okay.
And I guess the question is, do we know what it's going to cost us, and we just haven't added it up?
No, I did, actually.
Oh, I did. Or am I missing something? Sorry.
Should we put it in the resolution?
Yes, I agree. We should amend the resolution, Michelle.
Well, if I could differ just a little bit.
Well, not to exceed. What do you think it's going to cost?
I'm going to say to you that it'll cost us probably less than $800 a week for the exact same service.
I understand. So can we put in the resolution not to exceed $800? I presume there's going to be times when you want to call on them a little bit more than normal.
That's why I don't want to be fixed on a price.
I understand that, but I want to then have a cap. I want to cap it.
Right.
I don't want the guy spending $2,000 a week. How am I supposed to?
No.
So how am I going to cap it? How can you give comfort to the board that it's not going to exceed a certain number?
What we're paying now.
Right.
You know?
It has to happen, and I'll tell you why it has to happen. It's because we have a temporary procedure in place that has a specific number. So to go from a temporary relationship with a specific number to a permanent relationship with not a specific number, I wouldn't support it.
I understand. I will beg the board's indulgence. Give me 10 minutes. I'll be back. There's other business
Perfect.
you can
Good.
take
Yep,
care of.
Yep. Great.
Okay.
Actually, hold on. Let's go to your other resolution before you...
No, it's not a relation. You can go take care of that, Bishop. I'll take it.
You got the Crawford Park rental process?
Yes,
sorry.
Mr. Villanova
Thank you. Sorry, I
requested
thought
that.
I apologize.
Okay.
And also just change the meeting date.
Let's
Well, we'll come back to that in a second, yeah. So you want to do Crawford?
So with regards, and with the board's indulgence, I asked Hope Espy to put this on the agenda for us.
Yep.
From the last time that we met till tonight, there was an event that was held at Crawford Park. There was some damage that was done to the property. Not that it wasn't repaired. It was repaired, and I'm sure it's just as good as it was before. But the event did not belong at Crawford Park. It was clearly an event of the magnitude that should have been at Kensico Dam, Westchester County Center, a place like that that can handle that amount of people. So there was some damage, and I think that what I would like to do is put together another quick ad hoc team to review the Crawford Park rental policy. Two items that three really, that I want to address is the amount of people at an event. We have to have a cap.
Yep.
We also need to have in the policy the resale, or the prohibition of resale of food. We have to regularize that, and also the resale of alcohol. I think that the Rye-Town Board did it was a great job and a perfect step forward with the new policy. I think after this past month that we're in a position to fine-tune it to better serve the community and better serve the town around.
Would you be? I couldn't agree with you more on all 3 points.
And
I also think it's time for a new ad hoc team. Would you be happy to head that team?
Yes, I would.
And the thing is, I think, could you also look at, our revenues have come down over the last 3 or 4 years. Can we try and figure out why that is?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Just to get a sense of why they've come down. But I couldn't agree with you more. I was at that event, and I couldn't agree with you more.
Just so you know, last month, Councilwoman Collins did approach the topic of the revenue, and for the most part, and how I'll say it again, how I feel.
Yep.
It's not really about the revenue that the park. And I think back when we first started, Councilwoman Mendicino talked about that. It's the quality of the park.
Right.
When the revenue is down, our costs are down. We have variable costs at the park.
Right.
I know that we have had less and less complaints about the operations of the park, and it's really at a minimum. But we definitely will look at that. And,
Beautiful. Does anybody else want to work with Deputy Supervisor Villanova on this project?
Sure.